Dabi sighed as he heard a knock on the door, glaring at the clock that hung on the wall.
Who would show up at my door this late at night?
He thought, huffing and getting off the couch. Walking over to the door.
Hey, get out of here.
He chilled off, his eyes widening, seeing you standing there, all bloody and shivering. You were pressing against your left arm, a few trails of blood seeping through the cracks of your fingers.
I didn't know where else to go,
you muttered, collapsing into his shocked figure. Dabi quickly held you in his arms, catching you.
How did you end up like this?
Dabi mumbled, looking out at his door into the night, to see if anyone else was around. He narrowed his eyes and hurried inside, shutting the door as he gently put you on his couch. He pulled back and observed you for a moment, trying to figure out what happened. Dabi picked up your injured arm and inspected it. He quickly hurried off into the bathroom to grab a first aid. Dabi shook his head and grabbed the first aid kit, speed walking back to where you were and looked at your injured arm. He saw there was a stab wound in your forearm, putting the first aid down into the floor and pressing his hand against the wound, trying to stop the blood. He continues to hold it against the cut for about 10 minutes before quickly pulling his hand away and grabbing the first aid kit. He opened the kit and grabbed the bandages, tightly wrapping them around your arm. After when he was done wrapping it, he burned the ends of the main roll since he didn't have any scissors. After seeing the blood seeping through the first layer, he applied the second layer in the same manner. Thankfully, it didn't bleed for the second layer. Dabi quietly sighed in relief as he grabbed the nearby thin blanket, gently wrapping it around your arm and positioning it a little above your heart. Once he was done, he tied it off and sat you down next to him, still a little in shock.
You're gonna be fine, hero,
he mumbled, gently moving your head into his lap and running his hand against your messy hair. Dabi yawned and leaned back, closing his eyes, and drifted off to sleep. You groaned as you fluttered your eyes open, glaring around at your environment. You looked up and saw Dabi quietly snoring, his hand resting on the top of your head. A small wave of pain went down your left arm as you tried to use it, making you wince. You looked down and saw your bandaged arm. The events that occurred last night was flooding into your head.
Forgot that happened for a second,
you muttered, carefully sitting up off of Dabi's lap. The said male yawned as he opened his eyes, looking over at you.
Didn't know you were up already,
he grumbled, rubbing his eyes.
Oh, morning, sweetheart.
You sheepishly smiled, patting his leg.
Okay, let's get serious. What happened last night?
He questioned, crossing his arms.
Well, funny story.
Dabi narrowed his eyes at you, making you nervously look away.
Okay, fine. Not a funny story.
You sighed, slumping forwards. A group of villains jumped me while I was patrolling in one of the most quiet areas in the city. I, of course, thought I could take care of them, but apparently one of them had a shot paralysis quirk, and they used it on me. It was only for a few seconds, but during that, one of them pulled out a needle filled with strange liquid and injected it into my hand. You gestured toward the small hole in your right hand. When the quirk wore off, You trailed off, making Dabi raise an eyebrow.
You what?
He asked, slightly leaning towards you. You stayed quiet, not looking at him in the eyes.
Listener, please look at me.
You slowly looked at him.
What happened?
Concern laced his words, and a small frown grew on his face.
I couldn't use my quirk,
you finally said, making his eyes widen a bit.
They made it so I couldn't use my quirk. I was useless. All they did was gave me a huge grin and attacked me. One of them even had a knife and stabbed me.
A few tears pricked at the corner of your eyes, making Dabi lift your head and wipe them away.
What if I can't use my quirk again?
I don't know, but it doesn't mean you can quit. You hear me?
He said, making you nod.
So what if you can't use it? You're still gonna be a hero. I'm still gonna be your boyfriend.
Dabi sighed and pulled you in, wrapping his arms around you. Your eyes slightly widened as a tear rolled down your cheek. You hugged Dabi back, tightly wrapping your arms around him.
I love you,
you muttered, hiding your face in his shoulder. Dabi chuckled as he rubbed circles on your back.
I love you too, hero.
This is my outro for now, because it was copyrighted and I didn't know. Pew 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 pew.